Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom with Kate Olson. As an evolving spirit and change adventure navigator, it is Kate's mission to empower and guide you on your path and inspire your truest passions. She will encourage you to share your gifts, speak your truth, and ignite your inner wisdom and purpose. She hopes to do so with a little humor and grace and her own soulfire passion. Kate talks with amazing guests who have embraced the pursuit and are fanning the flames of their own passion, purpose, and soulfire wisdom. Now here's your host, Kate.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Soulfire Wisdom and Thankful, Thoughtful Thursday. So I'd like to tell you what I'm thankful for today, and that is that I got to talk to an old friend this morning that I hadn't talked to in a while, and that always puts a smile on my face, so I was really glad to hear from them. And so if this is your first time listening, I'm a life coach, a hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, and a Reiki master. And my businesses are Soulfire Wisdom Life Coaching and Embrace Change Hypnosis and NLP. And the purpose of the show is to highlight the journey, the path, pursuing your passions and the transformation and wisdom gained through that process. And in the process, I focus on mind, body, spirit wellness. If you listen to the Embrace Change with Kate show, we also had that focus. And today's show, my guest is Dr. Leyla Ali, and we're going to be talking about, well, the topic of the show is cancer diagnosis, know your options. And she has actually written a book or a booklet on that, a handbook. And I actually met Dr. Leyla in 2018 at the Integrative Health Symposium that was held at the Harvard Faculty Club. And we were both speaking there, and I was really both impressed, and I'll have to say Dr. Leyla's presentation was the most entertaining of all of the presentations. She was speaking at that time about the pharmaceutical industry and her other book, which is Off Balance, The American Way of Health, A Pharmacist's Perspective on Why Drugs Don't Work. Anyway, Dr. Ali grew up in she grew up in a home where her father was a medical doctor and surgeon, and her mother was a surgical technician. And she decided to go to pharmacy school and be a healthcare provider because she wanted to help people. But she was disappointed at the limited training that she got as a pharmacist, that she only learned about pharmaceutical drugs. So she was very inspired to learn on her own about holistic and natural treatments. Dr. Leyla's goal is to help people understand the limitations of both doctors and drugs and to guide them to find better solutions for their health. In her booklet, So You've Been Diagnosed with Cancer and Now You're in a Panic handbook, she provides an overview of options available for people to help in making better decisions. So I'm going to introduce Dr. Leyla now, and she can fill in some of the blanks and maybe tell us why she was inspired to write that booklet. Hi.
Okay. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And like you mentioned, my father was a medical doctor. I grew up and I didn't know there was any other alternatives for health besides the doctors and drugs. And I would, in our hallway closet, we had a cabinet full of medication. So whenever anybody was sick, my father would go there. There'd always be something to make us feel better. So I always felt safe knowing we had this access to medications, and drugs. And when I went to pharmacy school, I wanted to continue it, plus have a better understanding. But, along the way, I had this epiphany that there's something really wrong with our healthcare system. And it was soon after pharmacy school, everybody was doing those cleanses, getting the toxins out. They're very trendy. But I didn't know anything about it because we didn't learn anything about it. And a friend of mine brought me over a couple of books, and it said 95% of diseases are caused by what you eat. I'm like, well, that can't be true. I wouldn't have never heard of that. I'm, in pharmacy school, I graduated. I have a doctor title in a healthcare profession, and nobody ever told me about that. You know what I mean? So I went and I grabbed the therapeutics book. It's like, about 1,600 pages. It has all the disease states, and I started looking at common diseases like gastroesophageal reflux disease. And it said it's a balance of complex mechanisms of defense factors. And, it was basically, everything was just jibber jabber. And at that point, I just realized there was so much of basics health that we didn't know, that we weren't trained in as pharmacy. And that's when I started on the journey to learn all about the holistic and natural remedies and what better solutions are out there.
So, and that's what motivated you to write that's what motivated you to write the first book. What was actually the motivation for your most recent one on cancer?
So you've been diagnosed with cancer, and now you're in a panic handbook, and you just meet cancer is just really an extension, a more specific version of what my general book is about. But it's more, it's the same message really. But you see so many people, and once they have that cancer, then the doctor, everybody's telling them to go this way, to go that way. They're in a panic, and then they'll have, maybe chemotherapy. They'll take major steps that can affect their health without understanding the big picture. Yeah. So I'm hoping this book will be something that people can, get before they're in that panic situation right away. So they'll get an overview of the options, basically.
So what was you kind of just said it. Was there another underlying hope that you had in writing the book?
Well, I guess I'll say being in, working in pharmacy where you see people, listen to their doctor, take their medication as prescribed, only to get sicker over the long term. Then when you're in the holistic world, I've been at places like Optimum Health Institute and places where you see people with stage 4 cancer heal and all types. And there's like 2 different realities going on at the same time that they don't know about. So you have people, they'll go to raise money to find a cure for cancer for the American Cancer Society, yet they're not, the American Cancer Society isn't promoting all the prevention and lifestyle techniques that are available. So that's all a big money industry. So it's really kind of getting the 2 worlds merged, really, because the one merge of all the natural, simple solutions is really suppressed by the big money.
Yeah. So what can you expect from your medical doctor? I know you don't want to tell people, your doctor doesn't know anything, but what can you?
Well, again, pharmacists and doctors, and speaking generally without cancer, we're not trained in the basics of health. If you think of the basics of health that you need, there's body, mind, spirit, there's nutrition, right? So what we put in the body is super important. The detox, like I mentioned, we learned nothing about. Emotions, people that hang on to negative emotions can lead to disease. We don't learn about that. you could use your thoughts to make you healthier or make you sicker. And there's natural products, there's medicinal plants, there's herbs, a lot of things that have been around for thousands of years. If you go to a medical doctor or a pharmacist, we only learn about drugs. We learn nothing about all that stuff. And I compare it, it's like having an exotic garden and allowing a pesticide expert for your complete health care, right? We know one little aspect of health, yet people expect us to be the center of the healthcare system and know everything.
Yeah.
And taking that one step further is we're not trained that we don't know that. I mean, wouldn't it be nice if the doctor said, hey, we're going to have you on drugs forever, but if you go to acupuncture, you'll get better results. But they're not trained to know that, right? Because we're all trying to make the most money you can. So
Yes, nobody ever really says it, but well, nobody. We have a culture that you get the idea that there's a pill for everything. Nobody ever exactly says that, but that's, you know, that's.
We're capitalistic. Everybody has to make their money, and doctors aren't trained to acknowledge anybody as part of a team. They just put themselves on top and everybody else is, you know, fluff or whatever, right?
Yeah, they actually, and rather than, you know, working together, they kind of have an air of suspicion about the other, you know, those.
And that's all training. That's all,
guys or,
you know,
quacks or whatever.
Exactly. They'll label them as quacks, but it's all on the same agenda, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not because they really think they're quacks. It's like it's a money move.
So what are the limitations of the education that traditional allopathic practitioners receive?
Again, I think we've all heard like doctors get 4 to 6 hours of nutrition.
Ooh.
And I remember nutrition in my pharmacy school, they'd be like, you know, you don't have enough vitamin C, you get scurvy. I mean, nothing that was really practical, just, you know, if you, so very little, I mean, it really is, we're drug specialists, and it would just be better if there was a healthcare professional that could direct you to a doctor or acupuncture or holistic when you needed it, you know, instead of the doctors being the center of the healthcare system, right? And then you expect them to refer you to the best, but they're not really qualified to do it. So the whole system has gone a little astray, I'd say.
Yeah. What are some of the considerations when a patient is diagnosed with cancer that your physician really may not address?
Well, like everything,
Yeah,
you know, yeah, everything. Because you know, in my book, I had interviews of people who healed themselves. In my first book, I had Susan Moss, and she had cervical cancer and breast cancer, and the doctor screaming at her to have surgery, and she decided to take it in her own hands. And this is in the 90s, but she did detox. She ate really clean food on her own, and again, it was a lot harder to find the stuff back then. There wasn't, the internet wasn't established or whatever, you know what I mean? And she did guided meditation for herself and then helped with groups and things like that. And she's been cancer free for 20 years or over 20. And she wrote her own books. And, you know, you go to the doctor and they're like, oh, well, it must have been a wrong diagnosis, right? I mean, they don't really acknowledge it. But again, a lot of times they'll tell people, oh, you have this much longer to live, or it's incurable. And I mean, I met a guy at, it was Optimum Health, and he looked like he was 80-something years old, and the doctor told him he had 3 months to live. And I go, oh, I'm sorry, that's so much stress. He goes, oh, that was 12 years ago, you know. So when people start believing it, right? When people believe it, then, you know, your body starts, you know, if you don't believe it, you go, no, I'm going to get more opinions, right? But the people who believe it, their body starts to manifest it, right? So.
Yeah, the one thing that scares me a bit is what I've heard about so many like wrong diagnoses of cancer.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, like even when I went to the doctor, it's just, they did some tests. I never seen this doctor before, and had been a checkup, and I think they prescribed 4 medications for me. And it's just so carelessly that they prescribe these toxic things for you. And of course, I'm like, okay, I got what I needed. Of course, I threw them all away and went and did other things, you know. But you know, it's just, there's not much thought when they give you a prescription, you know, it's like, okay, well, I could just, we're just a little bit off balance. We'll focus on that, you know, instead of being on a medication that's going to cause more side effects forever. So
Yeah, I know I am always a problem to them too. I ask why, and then I say, you know, like, is there anything else I can do, because I don't want to take this medication, and they always act like you're kind of you're annoying them, really.
yeah, I have this chart too. It's like this cycle, this vicious cycle that we're in, that most people go to the doctor, they want a medication. Excuse me, most doctors only know what to prescribe as a medication, and insurance only pays for medication. So, I mean, I actually did a talk a few days ago, and the guy said that he had acid reflux, told his doctor put him on the Prilosec for 3 years, and then he went later, he said, do I have to keep taking this? And then the doctor said, well, you could just eat smaller meals and don't eat after 6 and you'll probably be fine. But he just defaulted by giving him medication because he thought that's what they want. So I'd say, I mean, I don't know what percentage of people expect a med and don't want life, you know, but the majority of the patients, the majority of doctors are on that drug bandwagon, you know.
Yeah, I had a doctor also, he wanted to give medication, and I said no, and then he asked what I was taking as far as supplements or using, and I said I was using Arnicare for pain, and he said, well, that's not approved by the FDA, and you know, acted like, you know, it might be harmful.
Yeah.
And people have been using that for like thousands of years.
Right. The FDA, you know, people, that's a whole new topic, but like the drugs that sell the most are made in the laboratory, right? Because if you have a herb for 1,000 years, you can't put a patent on that. So you won't see the commercials, you won't see the drug companies pushing it. So they take that arnica, alter it into the laboratory, then they have a patent on it, right? Now they have a drug that has to go through the FDA process, and that's approved by the minimal testing, right? I mean, as soon as they can, then they got it. But the thing that's been around for 1,000 years isn't going to get all that testing, and I mean, so it's just, yeah, it's such a crazy system. And the FDA, of course, they put in medications like, you know, Vioxx killed so many people before it got pulled off the market. Cipro, are you familiar with the quinolones? The ciprofloxacin is an antibiotic, and Levaquin. These are like prescribed by candy, and people are getting disabled by them, completely thrown out of their life with neuropathy and tendonitis. And there's an interview in my book of a guy like that, and they're still prescribed, and doctors don't know it. I think it finally has a black box warning, and if you prescribe it with prednisone or a steroid, it even is worse. But it really just disables people from a normal active life, and they keep it on the market as long as they can, you know.
Scary. Do you feel that there's, I wanted to ask you about what lifestyle changes people can make that are going to help with if they've been diagnosed with cancer?
So I guess the obvious one is the exercise. The food is big. If you, I'm sure you're familiar with the China study, where they talk about meat and dairy, you know, the basis of cancer and chronic diseases.
Okay. No, I hadn't. I'd heard that sugar was a big.
Yeah, sugar. The meat and dairy, I guess maybe diabetes, heart disease, things like that. Sugar, they definitely had it attached. They said they could turn on cancer, I believe he said, and with the casein, the milk protein. But and then again, if you go to the American Cancer Society diet, they don't have the best diet for you. You know, they still have the sugar. They'll say some of it, but not all of it. So the no sugar is probably one of the most important things. I saw videos on how it actually feeds the cancer. You know.
Yeah.
Grounding is also good, like walking on the earth, right? The going back to basics things, you know. So detox. Should have refreshed on what I had. Of course, there's the cell phones too. which are showing to cause a lot of cancer problems.
Oh, the
Right.
EMF.
Yeah, 5G and
Yeah.
things like that. I heard they're working on getting it neutralized, you know, and I don't know if it's there yet. So that would be good. But
Yeah, I heard the whole 5G is causing a bigger problem with that.
yeah, I heard, you know, it's can cause more damage, but I heard that there's a way to offset the damage that they're working on as well. So I'm keeping good hopes for that, you
Yeah.
know. And I also got products to help offset the you know, the EMF.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those as
You've seen them
well.
too. Yeah.
So, do you feel that there's an emotional cause behind a cancer and the development of disease in general and the dysfunction in the body?
Yeah, so absolutely. I always address that when you see, you know, different people having conditions. And Louise Hay, of course, is the founder of that idea. I don't know if she's the very first, but you know, you can heal your life, which is a disease state behind all. A lot of times, cancer is anger, you know, that's stuck. And even there's another book called Biodecoding that really goes into it too. It's really interesting, and it talks about cancer being a way to heal ourselves to help keep it in balance. So it's actually really interesting. But so when you have cancer, or you know, breast cancer is supposed to be taking care of other people before yourself, right? I mean, they all have different reasons behind them.
Yeah.
And then they'll say even lung cancer isn't your body, you know, it isn't your body trying to punish you for, you know, the lifestyle, but it's more, if it's not getting enough air, it puts more cells there so you can get more air in it. So it's a way to sustain life, basically. So when you have more cells, and then, you know, if the problem goes away, they should go away as well. So it's this extension. It's this understanding that your body's always working to create balance and sustain life. And so
Yes.
cancer, yeah.
There's also the Healer's Handbook, and that talks about the relationship between different disease and the body and
Emotion. Yeah.
body and emotions. Yes, and it's interesting how all of those, they don't always come up with exactly the same answer, but it's, you know, eerie how similar they are.
Yeah.
And it's all in all of them. It's about the flow through your body, like.
And the belief system, right? I mean,
Yes.
I remember osteoporosis is a belief that you don't have a support system. So the bones that support you. And then Parkinson's is wanting to control everyone and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you can't control your body, so you have to let that go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought those were some of the more.
Yes.
Ingrown toenail is something about moving forward.
Yes.
So,
that's Louise Hay's Messages from the Body. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can always look them up. Sometimes they don't resonate with people, even if they're true, but you know, it's always something to address.
Sometimes there's a little interpretation that you have to figure out, but there usually is something there.
I feel so too.
Yeah.
And I know too, when I have anger issues, I get it expressed somehow. Like you can feel it in your own body. When you have something going on, then you can go, what's going on emotionally, right? So.
Yes. So why do you feel that comedy or humor is an effective way to make people more aware?
You know, comedy, the stand-up comedy I've been doing now for over a year, it was sort of a natural way for me to express myself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I complain more about the pharmacy profession than really go into this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I mean, humor is the #1 goal for it. But if I can, you know, sneak in a message there, I'll do it too. So.
Yeah, cancer isn't quite as funny, but
Yeah, I don't have any cancer jokes, but
yeah, it's hard to. But I know that cancer patients do. So there is, I guess, a humorous side to everything.
yeah, and I've heard some cancer jokes. None that really struck me as really funny, but not easy one. There's so much, belief system around the cancer.
Hmm.
But I'll find some humor there. I'll make that a challenge.
So, if you could leave the listeners, I know we could talk about this for a lot longer, but we're almost out of time. So,
Yeah.
if you could leave the listeners with one thought from today's show, what would you want that to be?
I would just say the cancer diagnosis is there's so much more possibilities that they should know about before they get in that panic and make big decisions. And there's a lot of options out there. There's some centers out there and resources where people can help you heal without the toxic chemicals, if that's what somebody wants. So, and it's a matter of working to understand, like you were saying, the emotions, the nutrition, the detox, all these other levels, spirituality, whatever, to get those in balance instead of going right for a chemical. So there's a lot of possibilities out there, and not to be limited by what your medical doctor will tell you to say. There's a lot of different choices.
Yeah, and maybe even look into the options before you're ever diagnosed with cancer and find out about some of the preventive type.
Yeah. Right. And again, this booklet should be done, but it's on the final edits, but it should be like just an easy reference book for people. So hopefully it'll come in handy that people can read before or right after, they're diagnosed, so they know, so they don't have to.
Okay, well, I guess maybe that when you got sick before and we had to reschedule, I guess that was good, so you could
Yeah.
ready to be published.
Everything's right on schedule, right? So yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here today and talking about this really important subject. And we'll talk to you again.
Oh, I was say thank you for having me and helping share and all the work you do doing these all the time. So good for you, and appreciate it. Appreciate your work.
Okay, well, thank you for listening today. I have a quote that you can carry with you through your week. More than 10 million Americans are living with cancer, and they demonstrate the ever-increasing possibility of living beyond cancer. And that was said by Sheryl Crow. So we have another great show planned for next week, and that is 12 Days of Goodness. And I'll be interviewing Suzanne Newman Perkins, and I'll have to say that she is a CEO and founder of Answers for Elders, and 12 Days of Goodness involves two things that she's really passionate about, the Seattle Seahawks and helping older people live better lives. So be sure to tune in and you'll find out all about the 12 Days of Goodness and a really wonderful program that she founded in conjunction with her Answers for Elders company. So tune in next week, 12 p.m. Pacific time, for another great show, and have a really awesome week.
Thank you for listening to Soul Fire Wisdom with Kate Olson. We hope you enjoyed the show. If we made you laugh, brightened your day, or sparked a new thought, we have succeeded in our mission. Join us next time when we'll share more secrets and truths and all the magic of transformation that is the journey to Soul Fire Wisdom. Always remember, be fierce in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire.